Places, everybody.
And action. Hello, welcome to Show and Tell. I'm Billie, and today I have a bunch of knitters from around the world who are here with me on screen. We are all going to be knitting together the Elsa Schiaparelli Bowknot sweater from 1927. And with us, we have Lisa Stockebrand. Thank you. Lisa is the person who has been so generous with her time and energy in answering questions and also in having a hands-on look at the actual sweater that's in the collection of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. By the way, there is also one in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, and I don't know where there may be others, but I'm pretty sure that others exist. Lisa, between my interview with you and now, you might have ascertained where other Bowknot sweaters are. No? Okay.
There's some in the V&A. They're sort of floating all over the place. There's some in Paris.
Oh, yes. I haven't seen those, but I believe that that may be true.
There's one in my house.
Okay. Well, yes, hold it up so that everybody can see the sweater of the hour. This is the sweater that we have all come together to do a knit along of. And wow, this in the daytime, it looks really fabulous. You can see the light coming through. It's wonderful. So many of you have sent in questions, and I want to make sure that we answer as many questions as we possibly can. The first question is, I think, about the yarn. So I'll just say, in the interest of saving time, I know that you use Jamieson and Smith, which is Spindrift, I believe, which is a light fingering. 920 yards of the black and 690 yards of the white. Typically, that yarn would give 7.5 stitches to the inch and 8 rows to the inch using a US 3 or 3.25 millimeter. But with the Armenian, and Lisa's holding up a ball of it.
And now this is a 20-year-old ball, so I don't know what the label looks like now.
However, if you opt to use the Armenian knitting technique, which Lisa has and Elsa Schiaparelli's people did, and I say if because I think it's not a requirement at all. You're the boss of your own knitting. But if you choose to use that technique, that is not the gauge that you will get. You should be looking for 5.25 stitches to the inch and 6 rows to the inch using a different size needle. That's a US 5 or 3.75 millimeter. And Lisa says, and that's blocked. And she says you have to block it a lot. Back in Paris in 1927, she feels that the people really were pulling it to the limit to get that back color to come through. So I think that some people who are here with us today have tried swatching. And if you have, it would be wonderful for you to share your swatches with us. So Haley, you're nodding. I take it that that means you have swatched. Do you want to come up mute and
hello.
Show us your swatch?
So I started with the recommended needles, and I think my knitting must be very tight because I ended up with about a 7 by 7 per inch. It looks lovely. You can't see the colour coming through, I think, nearly as much as your version. So I went up another needle size to
is that blocked?
It is, yeah, it's washed and blocked. It's how Lisa said it is. You can't stretch it this way. It's got a bit of give that way, but it's like a thick wool fabric, which I think is quite nice actually. It's quite different to how I usually find knitted fabric. So I went up another needle size. I still didn't get gauge, to be honest, but I quite like the way it looks. So you can see through a little bit more. I don't think it's very clear on the camera. I'm sorry about that.
No, I think it is. I mean, I'm certainly able to see it. I have you enlarged
okay.
on my screen. I don't know if everybody else is seeing it that way.
Okay.
But I can
So-
definitely see the dark. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else have a swatch that they would like to share?
I'm holding up a photo of the original and you can see, so you can get a feel for how the original, the speckling.
But also, Lisa, the one that you held up, the actual sweater, you could see it very well. Okay, Jane's got a swatch she wants to show us.
I've been doing several swatches. This was the original one, which I think the gauge is actually smaller, so it's looser than was wanted. And I wasn't really sure how much it needed to show through, but it shows through quite a lot.
I think it looks great. And yours seems much more flexible.
Yeah, you see, I think
was.
it's a looser gauge, this one, than in the pattern. The other thing I found is that sometimes I get lines going down, and I wasn't sure whether that was part of it or not. So that's the looser gauge.
Lisa,
And then I
correct me if I'm wrong. People will get those vertical lines if they caught the yarn in the same column.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of difficulty sort of figuring out, and it's like I have not read, as I said in the YouTube video earlier, I have not read the Armenian netting technique book that Schoolhouse Press subsequently put out. I don't know if they did any more research, but we as an institution, as the museum 20 years ago, did not research this knitting technique. We researched Schiaparelli, and she had these knitters, one of whom was named, I don't remember what her name was because it's like really long in an Armenian, but they called her Mike. And so Schiaparelli was always talking about the Armenians, and the Armenians were going to knit the sweater for her. And all of her, and this technique that these Armenian women were doing. So I don't know if there's rules or anything like that, because that was not part of what we were doing. So when we were looking at the original sweater, this is a long way of answering the question. When we were looking at the original sweaters, and if you look at them closely, you have to see, there's like twill lines getting set up. If you can break the twill that going up a little bit, or just catch more frequently, you get a little less of that line happening. But in the original ones, you can see things like lining up and not lining up. Like one of the things I've had, I mean, long time ago, one of the things I have vague memories of trying to do was how to break some of that up. And I just ended up, like we would try catching the floats roughly every 4 and then roughly every 3. And then I just stopped thinking about it and just sort of tried to catch them every 2 or 3. And sometimes they lined up and sometimes they didn't. And over the course of the whole sweater, it seemed to work out okay. And I actually knit back in the day, I probably knit up 4 or 5 of these. So I'm not a real stickler for I kind of am more of like a wing it kind of person. So there's no way I like every 4th one did it. So I think I just sort of was like somewhere between some like 3-ish sort of stitches. And like, depending on the color work, it just kind of throws it off, and every couple rows you throw it off. But yes, it does line up sometimes.
Yeah.
I wanted Amy to show her swatch because she also raised her hand.
Okay.
Okay, I'll show you mine. Oh, I don't know if, let's see.
There you
You
go.
can see it here. So, oh, I'm not good at putting this on. You see? So I use the Jamesons.
The spindrift?
And yeah, the spindrift, and I got 7 stitches to 8 per inch, 8 rows, using a US 3. But I have to tell you, I really had a difficult time with the with the Armenia because I'm a thrower. So mine, I feel like it's very tight.
But you can see the white peeking through the dark
True,
color. So I think that's the objective.
yeah.
Unless you don't like the fabric.
I like the fabric and everything, but I have to be honest, I don't really like the technique. And I think you don't know how long it took me to do this little swatch. I think it would take me a decade to do the sweater. So I'm going to do mine in Intarsia because I think I would want to do a smaller project to get the hang of it, because I found it very difficult as a thrower to do this technique where you have to, you know, do this in pieces in pearl. I just found it torturous. So
I have put together, but I don't like the quality of it, but I've put together a couple of little videos that I will put up on YouTube showing how I envision doing that Armenian technique on the knit side as well as on the pearl side, sort of wrapping it on, wrapping it off, both. But okay, I've done Fair Isle where both hands are in play, and I think it's very similar. Anywhere where you have to catch the floats, I think, you know, it should be similar to that, but I'm in your camp, Amy. I haven't swatched yet because I wanted to hear what everybody else was going to have to say, but I'm pretty much in your camp, having just come off of something that was 46 stitches to 4 inches, Fair Isle, 9 colors. I don't think that I want to do the Armenian technique because I think it's also going to be very time consuming. I would estimate that it would be whatever length of time it takes you to make a sweater. I think you can safely add on another month. So if you knit a sweater in 2 months, I think this will take you 3.
So you said you're a continental knitter?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know. I felt like if I was a continental, it could purl continental. I think you could probably do it in your regular.
You'll watch my
Okay.
video and see, but I'm with you. It'll be interesting to know after we get through the other swatchers. Let's come back and talk about who's going to do Armenian and who's not, because I think we might be divided. Okay, so Ariana, you have a swatch?
I do. And it was the Armenian technique and the design that caught my eye. So let's see if you can see my swatch. This is my swatch. So what I did was I looked up Uni Zhang. She did a demo on Armenian technique. And what she showed a 1-1, you would catch every float. And when I did that, I did a whole bunch of different ones. Like in the beginning, you can see it's super stretchy where I did the 1-1 part on the back. I'm showing you the back because it fascinates me, the back. I don't know why, but that's what intrigues me about this technique. So when I did a 1-1 technique, it was very stretchy. So I did a 1-1 here. I wrote down exactly the different techniques that I did in the back. So then I think there was a 2-2, catching floats 2-2, and then 3-1, and all the different combinations. And what I find interesting on the top where I put the color, you see the little color square?
Yes.
I like the design on the back. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, yes, it makes little X's.
Yeah. And so when I saw that, I said, oh, well, let me try that. Let me continue. And I could not recreate it. I mean, I tried it all the way on the top with the 1-1 technique. I have no idea how it happened. But yeah, so the bottom line is that I know that the 1-1 technique is slightly wider and more stretchy. You can see it because it's sort of coming in, and this is blocked, and it's using Spindrift Jameson. So I'm not going to use these colors, I don't think, for my next probably swatch, because I want to try some different wools, but I'm very intrigued about what the inside of the sweater looks like of the originals. So that's my story.
Beautiful swatch. Thank you. Natasha.
So I got a kit from, well, I first encountered the original Schiaparelli, is that how you say her name?
Schiaparelli.
Schiaparelli pattern, maybe 20 or more years ago. And I had the original copy, and then I found a Schoolhouse Press kit and pattern. I bought that when my daughter was little, and now she's 17. And I finally, I had started it. And then I saw this knit along, and I thought, well, this would be my push to get this done. But so I started the back, and I do have the Schoolhouse Press Armenian knitting book, and so I think they suggest doing every third, and then offsetting it every other row, and that's that helps get my back doesn't look as good as some though, because sometimes I do every two. But so I've got this much so far. It's kind of I guess it's stretchy this way like others, and not as stretchy.
In the book, they're doing it on the knit side as well as the purl side, catching floats?
Yes, which is very tedious. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, for every stitch, instead of one motion, you now have two, at least every time you're going to catch. That's why I'm saying add a month, I think. But okay, if that's the look that you want, then it's worth it.
Yeah, I think so. That's one thing I really like is how it shows through on the other side. I have done it by mistake actually in Fair Isle, but so I just pull the white way forward to try to make it show. And if I forget to do that, then it recedes too much in the background.
Okay, thanks. Michelle.
I went straight in rather than do a swatch. So I'm using circular needles, and the yarn I'm using 2 cones. So I've gone for the traditional cream, and well, like a cream and a black. So it's quite, I need my lamp of an evening to use it. So I'm sort of I've gone against using the Shetland wool. So I'm using a mix. So the black is a cashmerino. So it's a mixture of cashmere and merino wool. And this one I bought from a charity shop. And it says on the label that it's 20% Angora, 60% lamb's wool, and 30% nylon. And the result is it's really soft, which I like. I've been playing around with it, but I've sort of got a bit confused with the Armenian technique. It took me a while. I don't know if you can see, but can you see that?
Yes.
The back's quite good, but because I'm an English knitter, it's taking a long time. So give me until Christmas, and I might have finished it. But you know, it is. I'm slow doing this, but I'm finding it very therapeutic. And as long as the end result works out. Now the thing is, as it measures at the moment, it's measuring 16 inches across. So I might actually start adding, like increasing as I get towards the armholes, just so it fits me across the chest. So I'm going to play around with it.
I think that sounds like a good strategy. Sophie, you have a swatch.
I don't have a swatch. I started like Michelle. I did do a swatch as well, which I don't have, but I thought I'd show you the actual knitting. So I have started. I'm also doing the Armenian method. Well, I'm doing my version of it. I'm doing the floats every 2 stitches, but offset. Yeah, and I did get gauge when I did it on my swatch. So hopefully it'll work out okay. It's measuring okay. We'll see. Yeah, but can you see it properly? I don't know. The light's shining through. My other color is a lilac, so what is shining through at the moment probably looks a bit.
It looks like the light shining through, but that's the lilac showing through, huh?
It's a bit dark, but it is actually showing. On
Okay,
the other side.
if you're happy with the result, that's all you can ask for. Okay, so now we've gone through that whole round. I have not even purchased the yarn yet because I wanted to hear what other people are saying. I'm pretty sure, I'm usually such a purist, so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to skip the Armenian technique and I'm going to use a tweed wool. At least that's my plan. And I was curious to know if anybody else thought of going tweed instead of Armenian technique. Lisa, go ahead.
I'm not convinced about this Armenian technique as being even a thing. It's just carrying your fair isle floats from salvage to salvage. It's not like don't get caught up in the Armenian thing. And again, the only reason Schiaparelli called it Armenian is because that's what her knitters were doing who happened to be Armenian. If they were Bulgarian, she would have called it the Bulgarian technique. We did not research this technique. And again, I do not know if Schoolhouse Press actually researched or if they just sort of grabbed the ball and ran with it. So what I'm hearing is like, it's not a technique you have to master. It's just, I just put in the comments, don't get caught up in the technique. Just carry your floats. That's all it is
Right.
Carrying the floats. If
Right.
you've carried your floats in Fair Isle, you can carry your floats in this. I mean, there's no like way to do it. It's like, I've gone back and forth, like right now I'm doing it. I'm just, catching it, and then I push it with my thumb, and then I unpush it with my thumb. It goes under, then it goes over, then it goes under, and then it goes over. What you want to be doing is just carrying those floats all the way across, because what the point of the purpose is the same thing that Fair Isle and the same thing that what is it with all the cables and stuff in it, is to create warmth. And it's like the Norwegian sweaters, the lice pattern that has, rather than catching the thread every 3 or 4 stitches, they actually do that little dot of color every 3 or 4 stitches. So this is just doing that, but without a dot of color. So it's like, as long as you get it caught up and it's floating nicely, you can't mess it up. I mean, it's not like a technique you're going to mess up. So free yourself from angsting about it. I mean, you just want to get a flexible fabric. And what's lovely about it is, because you're sort of looser than average on the fronts, but you have the floats on the back and the wool sticky outy bits from the Shetland, the wiry bits, you get a tiny bit of felting, and they just sort of like work together and tangle up a little bit and keep everything in check. So you get a warm, light fabric, the same way like a mohair lace is like way warmer than it should be, because you've got all these little pockets that are being opened up and have little wool bits carrying them and stuff like that. So
Hi.
Hi. I'm just started with my swatch, and I have some natural Shetland dyes. I got the impression that the sweaters were a start of not wearing, sorry, not nice, a start of not wearing your corset, but corset also gave warmth. So doing just what Lisa said, doing the both strands gave extra warmth. I'm a warm person in my middle years, so I think I will do the Bowknot, with the cone and this at the back. But the naturally colored Shetland wool, it's from a Dutch company, is a bit tweedy in itself. So I think I'll use that, and
so just intarsia, just regular intarsia with the bow in its own solid color or solid
and I have to adjust a little buxom, sorry. So I think I'll start at the top. I'll try knitting from the top, but I also have an injury, so I'll be looking and sketching and knitting a bit. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, Jane, go ahead.
Okay. I was just listening to that discussion, and if you're going to use a single strand, then you're going to have to adjust your what yarn you use, the weight of yarn. So if you're using a single strand instead of 2 strands, then you'll need to make it a thicker yarn weight. So double knit, say, rather than a 4-ply, which is what the Shetland is.
So this brings up a very interesting question. This pattern, as most vintage patterns of that era, is in one size only. And people were asking about, you know, before they committed to participate in this knit along, they were like, well, it's only in one size, and that's not my size, 36 bust. So I don't know how other people handle that, but I am accustomed to sizing things up because I'm never the vintage size, which is why I started knitting vintage, because I couldn't buy vintage clothing in my size. It's really hard to find anything that's bigger than a 26 or 28 inch waist. So it would be interesting to go around and hear, have other people had the experience of sizing something up? And just briefly, like, how do you handle that? I could tell you what I do. I create a spreadsheet. Not a spreadsheet, a grid. I use Stitch Fiddle, and actually I could probably share that and kind of show you. Okay. So I took Lisa's chart, which I couldn't manipulate at all, and I redid it into this software called Stitch Fiddle. Also, her chart is just grids and outlines, but I thought this was going to give me an easier visual. Right here, I have the exact number of stitches and rows that she stipulates in the pattern. And I will just figure out what measurements I need at my hips and waist and bust and shoulders, because they will clearly be different from this. I'm not straight up and down like this sweater is, and I don't want my sweater to be straight up and down. So I'm going to do waist shaping and some other things. My shoulders are significantly narrower than a better proportioned person's hips would be. So I'll probably take the shoulders in and let the hips out. And I'll just be adding on to this where I need it. And then I'll just make sure that my gauge gives me the right measurement. So if I'm getting 5 stitches to the inch and I need 20 inches and I need 100 stitches, that's what I typically do. I'd be interested in hearing if other people who are often knitting from vintage patterns have some other approach. Is everybody exactly the size of the pattern? I don't think so. Okay, good. Haley.
So I don't have a lot of experience of amending vintage patterns, but I sew for myself. So I might be going at it from a different angle. But if I work out how big I want my jumper to be, because like you, I don't, the actual size of the pattern isn't going to suit me, and I would like some shaping. I'm just going to calculate how big I want it to be. And then when I've worked out what gauge I'm going, you know, which needles and which gauge I've got, calculate how many stitches I need at each point up the jumper. That's my plan. Whether it will work, I don't know. But I think in my head, I'm thinking dress pattern, and at the hips, I want it this size, at the waist, I want it this size. And in theory, if I know my gauge per inch, then I should be able to work out how many stitches I need.
Wow, Lisa's showing us something.
This was the technology we used.
Well, okay, we understand it's 20 years ago, of course. Anybody else?
But it works.
Yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, without that, oh, Michelle is showing us hers. She also graphed it by hand, though. I also plan on changing the shape of the collar.
Oh,
yes. Go ahead.
If you're going to change the color is not a problem, but I'm actually gonna go around the corner, take my clothes off and actually put the sweater on, and I'll come right back. There's a couple of things about the pattern. Before you go changing the neckline shape, look at me wearing it first, because the side seam, the shoulder seam is not here, it's here. So if you go and change it all, you may be making changes. You may get some unexpected results when you actually put the sweater on, because recall the front is literally larger than the back. And that's because both the side seams and the top seams sit further back on the body than a modern one does. So that's part of the reason the neck is almost like this shape, you know, like it doesn't have that V, because the sides are actually coming over your shoulder. I'll go put it on and you'll see.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, I really liked your, is it called Stitch Fiddle?
Stitchfiddle.com, yes.
Yeah, your chart. I'm just wondering, it must have been pretty time consuming to get that in there. Or how did you do it? Did you scan it in? How did you get it to do that?
I did it by hand, but once you have a section, you can cut and paste. So, you know, if you have a, let's say 5 column and 20 row bit that's all black, you can cut that and then paste it and paste it and paste it to really fill in a large section. There's probably better ways of doing it, but I've done this now several times for other sweaters because it gives me a good visual. And
it's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, Lisa's back. But yeah, I mean, I do that a lot because I want to be able to see, especially if I'm changing something. Like I did a sweater, actually Michelle Mark sent me this pattern as a gift. It had horses on the front and horses on the back, and I didn't like their horse. I thought it looked anatomically like strange. So I threw it into Stitch Fiddle. I did it their way. And then I massaged it a little bit to get a horse that I was happy with the look of, since I was going to be wearing it on my back. So yeah, I have found it very useful. It's a good way of seeing things. Also, color. You can select any color that you want.
I noticed in the chat, Marlene made a comment that you could actually apply your gauge in Stitch Fiddle, which is an interesting idea. I don't know exactly what she meant. So maybe if she has a chance to tell us.
You know what, I created a little tutorial on how to use how to use Stitch Fiddle, and it's on YouTube. Right. I'll put the link up in the corner of the screen. So it'll be here. All of you will be able to go see this on YouTube as soon as I get the links. And yeah, I think I explained that in the beginning. When you're setting up your chart, it does ask you what your gauge is or how many columns and rows you want. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility with it. I know that there's other software that does similar things, but I've been using this one and I know how to use it, so I'm happy with it. Okay, Lisa says, let me grab that chat. She is 5'8". I won't reveal your weight to the whole world.
Oh, I chatted to everybody.
Yes, but that's only the people who are here with us. Once on YouTube, I don't think the whole world needs to know your weight, but it's a very good weight for that height compared to me, certainly. Okay, so you're going to model for us, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, it looks so great, Lisa.
So it's because it's boxy. So for the busty people, if you put an underarm gusset in here, you know, just insert a diamond when you sew it together, you'll get a lot of extra room and you'll avoid, it's not so much that you'll get a lot of room here, but you'll avoid this kind of thing happening, like the pulling, if you're busty. So if you do a combination of the gusset and then add a few stitches on the side, it really makes quite a bit of difference. But, you know, you can see, I mean, it's close fitting in the arms. The arms are very close fitting, but it's, you know, it's really comfortable to wear. It's very flexible. The side seam you can see is way back here. It's almost straight across the back.
Mhm.
Here's the top of my, I can't see because now I'm all glary.
Yes,
But
I
here's the
can
top
see
of
that.
my shoulder and here's the seam.
Right, I see the
And the
seam.
side seam is also set a little further back than a modern sweater is. And yes, it did stretch a lot when I blocked it. I steam blocked them. I didn't wash block them. All the sweaters that we have in our collection, and we have 4, 2 full and 2 partial. I don't know when it happened. I don't know if it happened before sale, but they had the crap blocked out of them. They look like they've been pressed at the dry cleaner in a steam press. They are blocked, and you do have to give it a really good steaming because it's all stockinette, and the only thing keeping it from curling is you have that little crocheted edge around everything. So they've just had the crap blocked out of them. I mean, they're not like painfully stretched, but kind of more than you're used to. And I did do a steam iron blocking to recreate that sort of pressed and blocked out look, as opposed to washing and pulling, which still retains a lot of the loft. And again, because we were going for more of a reproduction look.
Okay, Eleanor.
I am very much a plus size lady. So I am having to almost completely draw the pattern. And I have a book called Knitting Plus by Lisa Stockebrand, which I was looking through to work out how to shape the armhole cuffs, when I realised that basically one of the patterns that she's got in here was the same shape as the jumper with my measurements. So I've just used that, and to take into account the fact that the seams aren't central, I've increased the side of the front of the jumper and the front of the shoulder and taken that increase off the back. And then also, because my hips are considerably larger than my bust and my waist, I've then made it A-line, and I'm in the process at the moment. I don't use Stitch Fiddle, I use Stitch Mastery, and I'm in the process of marking out the shapes, you know, and working out stitch repeats, because the other thing I've got, I'm having to knit from stash. So I'm using different needle sizes with a different gauge as well.
I think it's going to be very interesting as we move forward to see how people are going to make these adjustments, because very few of us are probably the exact size that the pattern calls for. Maybe Sophie, but I don't know.
Well, I was surprised, you know, because I was there thinking I'm going to have, and then I spotted this pattern and I thought, why reinvent the wheel? She's got sizes that fit me.
I think that's very clever of you.
Yeah, and her pattern, I did get a stitch gauge on the needles that she gave, but I wasn't happy with the look of the fabric. Because my yarn, although it's classed as a fingering weight, I would say it's light fingering to heavy lace weight. And with the 3 3/4 inch needles, the fabric just looked untidy. So going down a needle size, I've got a fabric that I like, and I've just got to adjust, just like you said, number of stitches and number of rows.
In the chat, everybody's saying, well done, good idea. They're liking what you're saying. I can't keep up with all of these comments. Oh my goodness. Okay, I wanted to get to the questions that I promised to share as people were asking them online ahead of time. So let's see, some of them might have already been answered. Amy had asked how much ease was incorporated in the pattern and what changes were made for the modern fit. Well, we've talked a little about that, but ease, Lisa, 2 inches?
Not maybe, I mean, it's close. it's between no ease and maybe an inch of ease.
Well, because you had said in the pattern that this is for 36-inch bust, but the measurements were 38.
Yeah, so
And is that
or
38?
like a
block?
38. Yeah.
So I calculate
kind of made
38
that
minus
up.
36 too, but maybe it depends on how seriously you block it.
Yeah, it depends on how seriously you block. It depends on how busty you are.
Well, here was your answer. Let me read the answer that
Yeah,
you
it's
wrote.
it is very clingy.
You had written, we were going for a reproduction vibe, not a modern reinterpretation. So there were no modifications made to the pattern to accommodate a modern fit. We will feel there is very little ease. And as anyone who wears vintage clothes can probably attest, the arms and armscye are quite tight. Also, you will notice the shoulder seams hit further back on the shoulder than we're used to. Good posture is helpful. If you wish to make a simple change to add a bit of ease in the underarm, we included instructions for the diamond-shaped underarm gusset. So that was your answer. Now, Julie Morley, she had printed the pattern off, and on the first page, it talked about a DK yarn, and on the next page, it says 2-ply. So her question was, which should she buy, DK or 2-ply? And your answer was, the yarn that you used was 2-ply Shetland wool, Jameson and Smith. Generally knits up to fingering / DK gauge, but with the stranding, you get a slightly larger gauge than if you knit with a single yarn.
That was my question that you put through there.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Then Canel Legrand asked, was the original knitted in pieces or in the round and steeked? And Lisa's answer was knitted in pieces, blocked, sewn together, and blocked again, and then with a crochet border. Michelle Mark had asked what experiences people had with their swatches, and we certainly went around and showed everybody swatches. Then just shortly before we broadcast, someone named Catherine Clements asked, any tips for continental knitters in doing the Armenian technique? She's doing okay with locked floats on the knit side, but purling is more challenging since she's so used to purling with yarn held in her left hand. It's also affecting her tension a bit. There was a comment on Ravelry about using a knitting belt, and she was wondering if that might help. Anybody here use a knitting belt? I think that's a very British thing.
I think somebody on Ravelry said they were using a knitting belt.
I think so too. I don't remember. Who that
that's
was.
me.
Oh.
Yeah, I love my knitting belt, and I use a whole bunch of different knitting techniques. So for example, when I did the swatch here, this one I did using the knitting belt. And the other technique that I like to use is to knit backwards. So instead of purling, I would knit backwards. You know, when you do entrelac?
Oh.
So I find it improves my gauge. Yeah, the knitting belt, when I was taught continental. And since I've been using the knitting backwards, it's like doing English style, but with your left hand. And then with the knitting belt, I learned how to do English style with my right hand. So when I did the swatch, I was doing throwing for the main color and continental with the floats. So I don't know if that helps, but I really love using the knitting belt. And I got my knitting belt not from the Shetlands, but from somebody in the United States. And what's interesting about the knitting belt is it has different size holes. So I've been able to do big sweaters like Lopi using the knitting belt.
Do you have it handy? I've seen it, but people may not have ever seen one. You want to show us what it looks like?
Yeah.
While she's gone and getting that, I think that for next time, we might want to have people show, maybe you would come prepared, to be able to show how you're doing your technique. If you choose to do the Armenian.
Okay, so this is one of the knitting belts that I got. And what's kind of cool about this one, you can see the different size holes, so you can put different size needles. And this is one of the needles that I would have used for the swatch. This one you can actually wear around your neck, so you don't have to have it on you with a belt. I don't know if this shows up, but you could wear it like this. And if you're making socks, it's handy because, you know, your needles are shorter. And the one that I actually used was this one. And so it looks like this. It looks the same thing, but you can wear it over your shoulders. You can lay it on your, you know, on the side or as a belt.
And the holes are angled, I believe, so that when you put your needle in, it's in just the right place for you to be knitting with, and it stays put. And it's the other hand that's moving?
Yeah, so actually the holes, it depends on you. It's stuffed with some sort of a synthetic fiber, and the originals were stuffed with horsehair in the Shetlands. But you just pick a hole, any hole, and you pop it in and you wiggle it until it's comfortable. So for example, I'll just put this on. So you would have this here somewhere. Usually I'm sitting, but you can easily knit standing. So
that needle stays stationary.
This one is stationary. So this finger would be my throwing hand, and this one would be my continental. So I have nothing on the needles to show you, but maybe the next time I could be more prepared. But it's super fun, and there's very little motion. And what I noticed with my sweaters is because it's such a straight needle, the tension and the gauge seems to have evened out dramatically for me, because even with the circular needle, like I'm doing a sock right now, but I could have done this on my, what do you call it? My knitting belt. In fact, my ribbing for my socks, I do using the knitting belt, and I use Portuguese style for my purl. So I do a knit two, English style, and my purl two is with my thumb, Portuguese style. So that's my knitting belt story.
That's really complicated.
Yeah. So there you go. I hope
he's asking where you purchased such a belt.
Yeah, so I got this from, I think she has an Etsy shop. There's a place in the UK, there's a place in Shetland, and there's a place in, I think it might be in the middle part of the United States. I don't know my geography that well, but there is a knitting belt Ravelry group, and the details are all there. Or you could just look me up, and when you see a picture with a knitting belt, you can find that in that group, because they help me to get my needles and all my equipment.
Juliet, yeah, I think people with arthritis report good results using Portuguese knitting, which I thought I saw somebody having, oh, maybe that was last night. It's around the neck, something pins onto you, and it's using different muscles or something. I have never tried it, but you can Google Portuguese knitting or look on YouTube. I'm sure there's videos about that. That might be helpful.
Thank
you. Oh my
you.
goodness. So, I mean, this took such a different turn. I think that we should kind of stop here, because we will come together. My plan is for us to come back together every 2 weeks, at least for a couple of months, to try and see everybody through to completion. I mean, part of why I want to do these knit-alongs is so that people don't end up with unfinished objects. I think when we're here as a group, supporting one another, spurring one another on, it's not like you're really accountable, but I think maybe psychologically you feel like I've committed to doing something. It's like if you announce, you know, I want to lose 20 pounds this year, then you sort of feel like, you know, maybe you should work at it. So I think that in my previous knit-alongs, which have been much smaller groups, so thank you all for being so enthusiastic about this particular sweater. Most of the people have gone through to completion. Now, granted, some took longer than others, but I think this sweater is doable. I don't think it has like anything that's really, really complicated, but yes, it could take longer than normal if you're going to do catching your floats. Lisa, you wanted to say something? I think you have your hand up.
I just wanted to give a quick tip that I found worked pretty well for continental knitters is when you're doing your purling, continental, yeah, instead of, if you wrap your yarn, instead of wrapping your yarn clockwise over the needle, if you wrap your yarn counterclockwise, it's much easier to catch the floats because you can just, like, I don't know if you can see, but if you wrap your yarn the wrong way, all that will do to your stockinette is it'll change the orientation of the legs, which one is in front. So it's just, you just knit into the back instead of knitting into the front, you'll see. But it makes it much easier to use your, like I knit off of the yarn that's over top of my finger. And if I'm going underneath, so the yarn is going around my right needle clock, 2, 3, 4 clockwise, then I just find it easier to move. Like now I've just moved the black thread up and I've caught it. And now I can just move the black thread down. I don't know if you can see that.
It's really hard to see. And I think everybody's going to have a different technique.
Yeah.
I tried it. I wanted to make a little swatch before I decided that I was pretty sure I wasn't going to do it. Just to satisfy my own curiosity about it. I wanted to see if I could see the light color coming through. So I did practice and I made a little video, which I will put on YouTube. Okay. I would love for you to post pictures on Instagram with the hashtag Bowknot KAL. I didn't put Schiaparelli in there because I thought it's too hard a name to spell and it would be misspelled and then your pictures would end up in all different places. So I'm confident that you can all spell Bowknot KAL. So pictures there. If you're on Ravelry and you want to post pictures in the Ravelry group, show and tell, I've opened a thread for the Bowknot knit along. Pictures there are fine too. Our next little gathering, and maybe by then I'll have figured out how to get it to really happen live. That was so bad. I'm so sorry. Thank you all for being patient with me. January 29th. It's also a Saturday, same time slot. I assume that this was good for all of the people who are here. So, and who knows, maybe some people who didn't get here will decide to pop in after they see what we've done. Anybody else have any burning last minute questions? Helen, it looks like your hand is up. I don't know.
No, actually, it's just something I wanted to say. So I started swatching, but I've injured myself. And so I'm probably not going to be able to, I don't know when I will get back to knitting, but I just wanted to I'd like to stay a part of the group and watch as you guys are proceeding and just see how everything turns out, how different everything's going to be. And Arnie and Carlos, they have a video about, there's a technique that Norwegian knitters use where they use smaller bits of yarn and they roll it together. And that's supposed to help speed up the process, apparently, of the stranded knitting. And they also have another one showing how to do things so that the back gets an interesting look, just like Lisa's has at the top, so that you're changing the direction of the way your floats look. So then your back could be a work of art as well as your front.
Thank you. And yes, please feel very welcome to be along for the ride with us. And I hope that you're able to start knitting again soon. I know how frustrating that, well, I shouldn't say I know, I imagine that must be.
Oh, it's kind of a form of hell. Yes, it's not pleasant not being able to knit. That's my big thing. And if before the end, if I'm able to catch up and start and join you guys, I absolutely will be doing that.
Well, we hope that you can do that. And if not, you're still welcome to enjoy vicariously through
Yeah.
us. Marlene.
I have the book by Sandy Black, knitting, and there's a picture of the Victory and Albert, Museum. And somebody asked how the backside of the original sweaters would look like. So I do like the crocheted edge. Yeah, it's very nice. And yeah, that's how the original looks like that I wanted to show. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for showing that. I've never seen the book in person, but I have seen that book cover mentioned. So thank you. Oh, well, Lisa's showing another picture. Lisa.
You can also go, most museums, I know that the Philadelphia Museum of Art does, I'm sure the Victoria and Albert has a huge amount of their collection online that you can look at. They've taken beautiful digital photography. So you can really look up a lot of these and really zoom in. And these V-neck ones are nice because you can really zoom in and see the structure there for yourself. But this is from the catalog from 2003 that you can see from the two sweaters. See, this one's messier.
What does the cover of that catalog look like?
It's really pink. I don't know if this is the publication that went with the exhibition from 2003.
So Barbie says she's making hers as a dedication to Elsa S, but it's not going to be the black and white one. She designed a piece with a big shocking pink bow. Well, guess what, Barbie? I'm also going to do pink, shocking pink. I think I had a little quote that I meant to read. Yes, I'm not sure where I read this, but Elsa Schiaparelli created the first hand-knitted trompe-l'oeil sweater that was an immediate success in black and white, black and bright colors, with bow patterns, geometric shapes, skeleton, pierced hearts, sailor tattoo, or abstract turtle. The sweater was adopted by actresses and celebrities of the time. Vogue calls it a masterpiece. The United States immediately seized it and made it a bestseller. I've seen this with the fishies. I forget where I saw that. That's in the Philadelphia collection?
Yeah, we think it's a bathing suit top.
Because I didn't see that on their website.
Here's ones with boats.
Oh.
Let's see, yeah.
Oh my goodness, I want them all.
Gimbel's department store.
Which, oh, Gimbel Brothers.
I think.
It says Gimbel Brothers at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah, I was right. This one is that it's off, the bow's off center.
Oh, it's great. Oh, it's very exciting. I'm so excited that all of you are excited too.
Me too.
Yeah, that one's not so. I saw those. I think they're very interesting because I love Art Deco and I love black and white.
This is the first one that she wore. So that's Elsa.
But that's not the one that the big department store in the United States purchased, is it? I think they purchased the Bowknot.
She made a bazillion Bowknots. The official name of this sweater is just woman's sweater.
Oh. Because I was under the impression, and I could be wrong, that the sweater that we're knitting was the one that she wore to the luncheon when somebody, a buyer from New York, saw her and said, can you get me 40 of those?
I'm not positive, but I think that was this one, because she also incorporated it into, I just have a drawing, but into skirts, like that's trompe-l'oeil. I mean, it's a drawing, but they would look like they had a sash, but they didn't. And then she would actually attach a separate bow. So it would be like this part was knitted into the skirt, but then a real bow. I mean, that's when she started like all the, you can see this is the beginnings of a lot of her surrealist work, which she hooked up with Dali and all. This was like the beginning of all of that.
Yes, if you haven't seen the lobster dress, I will put a link to where you can go see a video I did where I show Wallace Simpson wearing the lobster dress that Elsa Schiaparelli collaborated with Salvador Dali on. I'm trying to think
another
of
bathing
something else. Oh yeah. What a great catalog.
Still available
at the museum shop.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I do have an extra one. I could raffle it off.
Oh, well, wouldn't that be exciting if somebody wanted that? Okay, last call for alcohol. When is the exhibition in Paris? Marlene wants to know. This fall, did you say?
Yeah.
Oh, wouldn't it be fun if there was no COVID and we could all like go to Paris and meet with our sweaters? Oh,
end of June, I think. I'm typing it to the.
Everybody, see you back here in 2 weeks. Happy Bowknot Schiaparelli knitting. I hope I'll have my yarn by then and I'll be able to show you my choices. Lisa wrote Musée de la Mode, end of June, possibly. Okay, everyone, thanks for being here. See you next time.
Of everything before I bring it all back. So you will get, you end up, depending on what kind of knitter you are, you'll either have a beautiful twined edge, but if you're my kind of knitter, you end up with a little bit of a manky edge with bloops when you go to sew it together. And oh, that's another thing, be sure to block it before you even attempt to sew it together.
Yeah,
it makes it sewing together so much easier because again, you've got, not only does stockinette want to curl like crazy, but now you've got these floats, which are also like complicating the, you know, the physics of your knitting swatch. So, but yes, if they go, everything goes all the way over to the
that's
end.
very important.
Start right from the first row too.
Right, that's a very good tip. Thank you. I'm glad I asked.